All right, so before I jump into the video, just want to let you guys know that in recent news, basically the Kyrie trade was put on hold because the Nets wanted to get another pick for him through Toronto or their team or whoever they were trying to get a pick from, and obviously the Mavs were pretty pissed because they just want to get Kyrie to Dallas as soon as they could, but that already kind of passed. So that's why in the video I'm going to be talking like the trade kind of went through but kind of didn't, just because at the time of recording I really didn't know. But hope you enjoy the intro, hope you enjoy the rest of the video.
Three. He throws to the end zone. Davis 4-3 in the win. Oh, it's good. Crosby in on goal. Backhander. He scores. And good. 49ers win it.
Hello, Loki Legion. Today I'm going to start a new series. Basically, it's going to be the NBA power rankings. So every Monday I'm going to make sure to just do a quick power ranking of every team, basically. So the way I'm going to kind of do it would just be, we have 5 different tiers. We have the finals tiers, teams that I think can actually win the championship. We have contenders, basically teams I don't think will win the championship, but can make decent playoff runs. Kind of okayish teams, just teams that are not like playing kind of teams, but are also not really contenders. And then we have playing teams, basically teams kind of barely scraping by like the competitiveness. And there's the teams that are going to be in the Wembanyama sweepstakes, basically the really bad teams, the tanking teams, all that kind of fun stuff. I'm just going to go by based on what we have in this order. So the Philadelphia 76ers are a pretty interesting team. They have a really good roster, obviously, because they have James Harden and Joel Embiid, and they have a really good starting lineup. But there is some kind of depth questionability with them. But it's kind of hard to discount MVP Joel Embiid. Also, James Harden has been playing really good basketball. Tyrese Maxey off the bench is really interesting as well. I think just because they're better than the contending teams I believe will be here, I'll put them in the finals. But obviously, to also clarify, if I put a team on the left side, that means I think they're better than the teams on the right side. So just for some clarifications, Washington Wizards, they're kind of like a playing team. They're not as bad as the teams that are tanking, but obviously I don't think they're as good as, they're not even really okay. They're just kind of there. I'm not sure how much. I believe they're only a couple of games back from the plan, but still, they're not at the tanking tier either, because the tanking teams have 10 games back behind them. So obviously they're not okayish, but they're not obviously tanking. But Atlanta Hawks, they're a very mediocre team right now, just because when you look at their stats, they have like almost the same road record, home record, points allowed, points scored, etc., etc. They're a very middle of the pack kind of team. The obviously when they traded for DeJounte Murray, they thought to be a little bit more of an impact, but because how much there's kind of a lot of slumps, a lot of kind of little nagging injuries that affect them. I'll put them in the playing tier, but if they get better, I can see them going up to okayish. The Cavs, I'm putting them in contenders. They're a really solid team. The Donovan Mitchell trade was really good. Darius Garland has to be one of the quietest stars I've ever seen. No, I've never seen another player that can average like 30 and 10 or have a 30 and 10 night and not get a single highlight or anything from the mainstream media. So they're a very good team. Obviously, they have some questions with their wing spot, especially at their 3. But other than that, they have Evan Mobley, they have Jared Allen. That's a crazy good defensive pairing. So that really makes up for the fact they have 2 smaller guards that almost doesn't even really affect them too much. But moving on, we have the Pistons. They're in the Wembanyama sweepstakes. Nothing really too much to say about that. Cade Cunningham has been out for the whole year, basically. So they're obviously just trying to tank, get some more picks. They have some players coming up. Killian Hayes has been decent. Bogdan Bogdanovic has been decent as well. But they're not really. They're obviously tanking. But Indiana Pacers, at one point they were really in the okayish tier, but because of how they've fallen off a little bit. Tyrese Halliburton getting hurt did not help them either, but they've been really bad since that injury has been happening. So, and this was supposed to be tanking year anyways. They had a really good start though, so I was gonna put them in the Wemby sweepstakes. Bucks, their final team. When you have Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday is an all-star as well. Obviously, some people are kind of disagreeing with that notion, but that's just how it is. They have a really great team, and they're always going to be in the finals conversation, especially with Giannis. But Now we have to talk about the Toronto Raptors, and as of right now, when I'm recording this video at 2:30 Pacific time, so I haven't really traded anybody yet. But they're obviously not as bad as some of these teams, but they're at the bottom of the kind of playing race. They're only like 3 games behind the Bulls. I'll talk more about them later, obviously. But if they do trade Van Fleet, Siakam, OG, I would put them in the Wemby sweepstakes because they're not too far behind. They're in a weird spot where they kind of don't even fit in the plane or Wemby sweepstakes team. So we'll kind of have to leave them at the bottom of the plane for now. Mavericks are a very interesting team. We all know that. Well, kind of weird what happens because we all know they traded for Kyrie Irving, but they're holding up on a Raptors deal. So technically, that still hasn't gone through. But I'm just going to go with the assumption that they will still get Kyrie even if the Raptors don't play ball with them. And I'll put them at the I believe the top of, at least right here will be good for in the contender tier, just because their depth took a hit, and their depth was not that good to begin with. They traded away Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith and a couple first round picks for later on, but I'm not going to really count those right now as for this ranking. But they obviously got Kyrie Irving, and that's a really good shooter, really good ball handler. He can help Luka, especially for a co-star kind of player. But they did take some, as I mentioned before, some hits on the depth they cannot really afford anyways. That's why I can't really put them any higher. But Luka and Kyrie, that's a really interesting team composition. So we have to kind of see about that going forward. Nuggets, I'm gonna put them next to. I want to put them a little ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks because I think they're especially their starting five is really good. They have one of the highest plus minuses in the league for a starting five. They have Jokic, who's an MVP candidate, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. This KCP, they just have a lot of guys that know their role. They have a lot of spacing. They're a really good team. This all around very, very solid team. They're the best team in the West easily as well. But Memphis is a really interesting team just because I would want to put them even kind of like a niche kind of right here, but just because of how the fact that they're always dealing with off the court issues, character, like, there's a lot of stuff they're always being kind of the media reports on, and obviously distracts them just based on comments. So especially when they say they're good in the West, they like 0-5 in the West in the last couple of weeks or so. Then they've been 1-8 since the Shannon Sharp stuff. There's a lot of drama from them that obviously affected their play on the court, but looking past that, they're still a really good team in the West, and they have way more depth than the Mavericks. They have JJJ, Jordan Jackson Jr. They have Dylan Brooks if he's not shooting like shit. They also have John Moran as well. They have Desmond Bain. They have a lot of guys who are really good players. A lot of good role players as well. Danny Green will come back soon. That's a really good floor spacer, and I'm not sure how good his defense will be, especially coming off an ACL injury. But he can at least probably still shoot. So they're still a really solid contender, but I can't really put them any higher than that. Wolves, okay-ish. They've been a lot better recently. I have to give them credit. At first, that Rudy Gobert trade was looking like an all-time horrible trade. Well, I'm not saying it's any that much better. They're at least looking decent. Rudy Gobert is kind of finding his footing there. Anthony Edwards has been a really good player. And if they do get Cat back a little later on, I think it could even bump them up to a little bit higher of okay-ish. But right now, they're still really decent. They've been playing good basketball recently. No one really talks about them because obviously it's the Wolves. It's not really a popular team or a team that gets clicks, but they've been pretty decent so far. Spurs, they're in the Wembanyama sweepstakes. I'm not going to talk too much about them. We kind of know, we've known they're going to be tanking this year, and the results show they're at the bottom of the West. So the Utah Jazz, at one point they were really looking like a borderline contender, but they've slowed down. A lot of their players have kind of gone back to earth a little bit, but they're still decent. I'll put them in the play-in tier. They can probably still make the plan and probably get in the sneak in the playoffs. They're not horrible, but they're not good as they started the year. Clippers, I would put them as contenders. We know they have crazy depth. They still have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. If they can stay healthy, it's a really, really good team. The main question will just be what's going on at their point guard, because it seems like they want every point guard in the market. I heard them with CP3, Fred VanVleet. They're in on the Kyrie Irving stuff. But other than that, they have a really decent lineup other than their point guard kind of spot, because John Wall has been the number 3 they thought they'd be getting, and Reggie Jackson's serviceable, but nothing really special. I'll put them in contenders right now. The Suns are, At one point they were really falling off, but now they've kind of gotten back in there. I think they're way better than the okayish teams, but they would be kind of at the bottom of the content. It's really hard to kind of gauge them just because Devin Booker has been injured. Chris Paul's age has been a big factor in why this team's kind of fallen off, especially due to how good they were last year. He's obviously been now that he's in his late 30s, he's not playing as well. He has games where he can still play pretty decently, but he's not as reliable as he used to be due to his age. So that's what, and he was a big part of facilitating and kind of leading this team, and especially when they made that finals run. So they're not I wouldn't say they're bad at all, but when it comes like the really good teams, they're just kind of there, especially due to all the injuries, the Jay Crowder drama. He still hasn't been traded, so we have to see about that. The Blazers, I would put them right here with the rest of the. I'd put them higher than the Wizards. They're still like they're playing team right now. I believe they're 11th seed. They're obviously when they can catch fire, they're really good, especially with how Damian Lillard plays. But because of how Damian Lillard has come back from injury last year, that's kind of affected them, especially if his fifth Anthony Simon and some of the other younger players. But they're not as bad as the tanking teams, but nothing too crazy either. But moving on to the Kings. Kings are very interesting. I would put them at I'd put them a little bit higher than the Suns. They're really their depth has been showing up. They have Domantas Sabonis. They have Keegan Murray, really good rookie. When De'Aaron Fox is there, he's a really good player. And it's crazy that he didn't get in the All-Star game. He averages, I believe, 26, 27 points a game, if I remember correctly. They're a really good team when Fox is there. He has some kind of issues to foul him, but when he's there and everybody's healthy, they have a lot of good pieces. They're a contender for sure. Knicks, okay-ish. I would say they're a little bit better than the Hawks because they've kind of pulled out some more games because they had like a really good stretch when Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle were playing really good all-star level basketball. They've kind of gone back to earth a little bit, but I still think they're okay-ish. Not really a contender, but they're okay. Pelicans are really interesting because when they're fully healthy, I think they're a top contender. Even maybe borderline. I'd say they're a top contender. I don't think they'd ever go to the finals, but they would be a top contender. But right now, we know that Zion's hurt. BS coming back from injury. They've just been riddled of injuries the whole season, and CJ McCollum has been inconsistent. So I would put them, just because of all the injuries they've been getting hit with, I'd put them at the top of okay-ish. If they can get healthy and their team can get back to form, I'd put them in contenders. Maybe even top of contenders if they can get back on a win streak. But right now, they're really just okay. Hornets, Wembanyama kind of team. To clarify, I think the Spurs and the Rockets are a little bit worse than some of the other teams based on kind of how the record's been going, but they're all almost functionally the same. They're all tanking at this point. Pacers, I can see them actually kind of going up in the play-in kind of race, and the Raptors coming down to the Wemby sweepstakes, but that'll have to depend on the trade deadline. I'll talk more about that next week once the trade deadline's through. Miami Heat, same thing, okay-ish. The problem with the Miami Heat would be, obviously, we know last year they made it to the conference finals, and it took the Celtics to 7 games. That's a really good feat, obviously. I'm not going to just kind of discredit that, but they functionally just lost PJ Tucker, and they haven't done anything else to replace that. Well, I feel like, obviously, I think the Bucks got a little bit better just on their they got Joe Ingles, who's pretty good depth, and they re-signed Bobby Portis. Sixers, kind of same thing. They got PJ Tucker instead. The Cavs got a lot better as well, and then we'll talk about Celtics and some of these other teams later. But it's kind of hard to rank the Heat above anybody else right now. And these finals teams, contenders, just based on how they've just been really mediocre. They had a really bad start to the season. They may get a little bit better, but if they can catch fire and they can really get some games and get a higher seeding, I can see them in the more higher in the contenders. But right now, they're just kind of okay-ish. Bulls, they're a playing team. Nothing really special here. I wouldn't be surprised if they just I'm not sure if their pick belongs to them, but I'm hearing a lot of things about trading away Vucevic, even some DeMar DeRozan stuff. We'll really have to see what they do for the trade deadline. But right now, they're a playing team. The Nets are very interesting because I feel they've always been a contender, but the main thing with the Nets would just be that I'd just put them a little bit over the Clippers and some of these other teams. The main thing that kind of held them back, obviously traded away, or they're pending to trade away Kyrie Irving, depends on how you want to look at it. But they got Spencer Dinwiddie, who's a serviceable guard, and then they got Dorian Finney-Smith, who's a 3-and-D player who can really defend almost every position in the league, which is really important because we kind of known that, especially when you have Kyrie out there, the defense they have obviously kind of been surprisingly good, especially on the defensive side of the ball with their metrics. But having Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie over Kyrie Irving can help their defense a little bit, help a little bit more with the depth. Obviously, they ain't picks, but I don't really care about that for this power ranking. But still, they got a little bit of depth for Kyrie Irving, and if depends on how things work out. If they do a 3-team trade, I'll have to talk more about that next week if that ever does go through. But I still think the Nets are a pretty good team. I don't think they're as good as like the Cavs or Memphis, especially once they lost Kyrie. But the main thing, going back to they have more depth, and then once KD comes back and he's fully healthy, that's still Kevin Durant. He's been playing really good basketball this year. He's almost averaging 30 points a game off really good field goal efficiency. So they're really not that bad, even after the Kyrie stuff. I think people kind of blew that out of proportion. So Thunder, they've been really good recently. I was really inclined to put them in the 1B sweepstakes, but because of how good they've been playing lately, I would put them kind of in the play-in mix. If they really want to, they can they can really get past the Blazers and some of these other lower playing seeds as well. They're a really decent team right now. And Josh Giddey, a lot of their young guys, SGA has been playing really good. A lot of their young guys have been developing. So give them flowers where it's due. They've been pretty decent. Now this is a really hard team to rank right now because the Warriors only one game above 500 last time I checked, or a couple games above 500. But it just feels weird if I put them in the okay-ish tier. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And before you kind of leave an angry comment, here's why. It's just because Steph is hurt, and we know how bad the Warriors can be without Steph. When he's on the court, they have one of the highest plus minuses. When he's off the court, it's not looking so hot. But I believe just because of how Jordan Poole can play when he's starting, that's also another factor. He kind of plays like a mini Steph when he's starting the game as well. So we'll have to see, because Steph has missed some time early in the season, and they were above right around 500. So it's not like they took a free fall. So we'll have to see about that. I can't really rank them higher than okay-ish without Steph. But if they win games without him, because he's going to be missing next couple weeks, I can easily put them at contenders here. Celtics, I believe, are the best team in the league, unfortunately. They just have really good depth. They have a really loaded bench, really good starting five, really good defense. At one point, they were shooting historically. And right now, they're still a really good offensive team. And right now, I think the Celtics are the clear favorites going into kind of the playoffs race. And you can't really argue with that. They're just objectively the best team, and they're on par or better than every other team, especially in the finals tier. I'd have to put them a little bit higher than some of these other teams. I'm gonna talk about the Lakers right now. Magic I'd say they're the best, other than the Pacers and kind of like the sweepstakes or like the tanking really bad teams. Especially how Paolo Banchero has been playing, and some of the other guys have been playing off the bench. Really decent. Obviously, they're still really young team, so I can't really rank him in like the playing tier, but they're all right. Especially for a tanking team, and they have a bright future. But the Lakers, ooh boy. I think they would be at the plane, but kind of they would be at one of the bottom kind of playing teams, just because right now they're in the West. They're the worst non-playing team, if you will. They're at the 13th seed. They've just been obviously they have injuries, especially if Anthony Davis, LeBron missed a little bit of time, and then Russ had has a couple games where he missed due to whatever his story is, because we don't really know if they're just holding him off for trades and whatnot. It's just everyone expected them to get Kyrie Irving, and obviously it didn't happen just because he got traded to the Mavericks, or depending on how you look at that. And because of how the Lakers' depth is so guard dependent, they have, until they got their Hachimura trade kind of going, they're really deprived of wings. And even right now, the wing depth is still low, especially when Anthony Davis is hurt and all that. I can't really rank them any higher than that. But if they make a trade, or they can somehow find a way to get rid of Russell Westbrook, especially if how much of a minus he's been, especially in crunch time situations, I could rank him a little bit higher, but right now they're in the playing kind of race, and that's really about it. But thank you guys for watching this video. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more tier lists, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.